If I have to film this one more time, I'm done.
Hi, I'm Amber. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my wrap up for January. What I would usually do is I would only do my next TBR once I finish reading the 6 books that I had chosen for my next TBR. And then when I would choose my next 6 books, I would recap all the books I had read in that time. I still want to do that aspect of it, but I also want to check in with my challenges at the end of the month, and then also share the stats that I've been starting to keep track, because I thought that would be interesting to share. So I thought it would be just easier if I went back to doing it monthly. That being said, let's just jump in with talking about the books that I have read. First, I want to talk about the books that I reread, and the only book that I did reread is Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, which I gave 3 stars. The library books, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I gave 3 stars. Hold Your Own by Kate Tempest, which I gave 4 stars. Running on Empty by Marshall Ulrich, which I gave 1 star. A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Osabo. I enjoyed enough to pick up a copy of it for myself. 10th of December by George Saunders, which I DNF'd. Blacks by Gwendolyn Brooks, which I gave 5 stars. And the first and second volumes of Lumberjanes by Shannon Waters and Noel Stevenson, and I gave each volume 4 stars. And now onto my 6 book TBR. Out of the 6 books, I only read 4 of them. The first one that I read was In the Shadow of the Bunyan by this author, and I gave it 5 stars. I DNF'd Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I finished the second part of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And the last thing that I finished was the first part in The Greater Journey, Americans in Paris by David McCulloch. The 2 books that I didn't get to were A Fine Balance by Rohitan Mistry. I did actually plan to push this to the next month, but I had already started to read this, and I realized pretty early on that this wasn't the right time for it. So the 6th and last book on this TBR that I had also planned to push to February was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. But I watched a video, and I'll put a link down below, and she has all of the links to her where she's getting her information. But she says some very disappointing things about this author, and I don't feel comfortable in supporting her through buying, reading, and sharing it on my channel. So I will be ending up getting rid of books that I have of hers, sadly. Now onto the challenges. As you may recall from my reading goals, I had, I believe, 4 challenges, but I ended up putting to the side one of them, which was to read banned books. I had planned to read 6 of them in the year, but I was starting to feel pressured with the amount of challenges I had going on and just how many books I was getting from the library because of that. And, I only get like 2 to 3 weeks out with each of these books, so I didn't want that pressure anymore, and I decided that if I do finish one of these challenges before the end of the year, and I believe I have enough time to get the banned books challenge finished, then I will start it up when that happens. But otherwise, that will be a challenge that I try to complete in the coming year. That being said, I do have 3 challenges. The first one that I'm working on is the Read Harder challenge that Bookright came out with this year, and I was able to finish 2 of the tasks. Those 2 tasks were the first and 6th task, and the first task was to read a book about sports, which I chose Running on Empty by Marshall Ulrich. The 6th task was to read an all-age comic book, which I chose Lumberjanes by Shannon Waters and Noel Stevenson for that one. My next challenge is to read 12 short story collections, and I was able to complete 2 out of the 12. A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Osabo, and then 10th of December by George Saunders. The last challenge that I'm checking in with is the 6 poetry collections, and I was able to read 2 this month. The first being Blacks by Gwendolyn Brooks and Hold Your Own by Kate Tempest. I'm very happy to say that I'm on track with my challenges. I didn't really know how this was going to turn out for me, because I started out pretty motivated at the beginning of the year, beginning of the month, and then as time goes by, I start losing that motivation. But I've been keeping on, and I'm very proud of myself for that. I am very determined to be able to check these off as completed challenges for the year. I just need something to go right, in a sense, so this has to happen.
Right?
Being said, let's move on to my reading stats. Sadly, I can't put pictures up next to me. I would love to be able to do that, but I can't really afford the nice fancy editing software, whatever. So what I will do is I will just cut to it, and then you can pause and see it all percentage wise in the nice fancy pie charts that I have for you guys. But I will be listing them off. The first thing that I've been keeping track of is genres. For the month of January, I was able to read 1 fantasy novel, 2 poetry collections, 1 thriller, 2 classics, 1 horror, 3 nonfiction, 2 short story collections, 1 historical fiction, and 2 graphic novels / comic books. In total, I was able to read 13 books this month, which is crazy. Technically, I shouldn't be counting either Lord of the Rings or A Great Journey in this, but I am, because I completed what my goal was for this month. So it's kind of a really shouldn't, but I'm going to no matter what kind of situation there. That being said, I really would love to be reading more fantasy. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have a good number of fantasy in the mix. Next, ratings. I read 2 5-star books, 6 4-star books, 2 3-star books, 1 1-star book, and I DNF'd 2 books. Now we're going to be talking about genders. I read 5 books from male authors and 7 books from female authors. My goal here is to keep it pretty balanced. I will be very happy if it leans more toward female authors, just because I feel like I tend to read more male authors than I do female. So, library books versus owned books. I read 8 books from the library and 5 books off my own shelves. For this one, I don't really care that much where it lands one way or the other. I'm just curious to see where it does land at the end of the year. I've been keeping track of white authors or author of color. So for this month, I read 10 books from authors who are white and 2 books from authors of color. I definitely need to work on this. I never really kept track of this before, and I didn't really understand the importance of it when I was younger. But as I've grown up and started to see things in a different way, I realized how important it really is. You get a whole different viewpoint from people from different cultures and ethnicities than you would if you're reading majoritively white authors. So that needs to change. I'm really sad that this month I didn't read more than that. The last thing that I've been keeping track of is first time reads versus rereads. I think it was pretty clear where this landed when I shared with you the books that I read. So I read 12 books for the first time, and I only reread 1 book. So I'm like 98% happy with the results of this month. Like I already said, I wish I had been able to read more authors of color, but that will happen more in the coming months. Now we're on to the very last thing that I have to share with you guys, which is my TBR for February. I'm currently working on finishing the 3rd and last part of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Then I plan to continue on with the second part of The Greater Journey Americans of Paris by David McCullough. Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. Now this one I never planned to read, but I got this for free in the Book of the Month box for January. I'm not really a Gillian Flynn fan. I've struggled several times to try to get through Gone Girl, and I just don't think that her books are for me. So that being said, I'm just glad that it's really short. A Walk in the Winds by Bill Bryson. To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. The 6th and last book that I will be trying to read this month is The Gnome World by Edward P. Jones. There you go, that's all I have for you guys. Tell me down below if you enjoyed this. Should I keep on doing this on a monthly basis? I thought it was interesting myself, but I know that some people might find this pretty boring. So I will understand if this is not something that you would enjoy from me. Thank you all so much for watching and keep smiling.